Leave ham radio alone. All right, this is another article I found about HOA type stuff. This is more about land and deed restrictions and city restrictions than it is about HOAs. But I really liked that HOA video that I recorded a while back about the guy in the UK. And he actually sent me an email with some further details, so you're going to see a follow-up on that video soon. But check this out. This comes from the Maine Monitor, as in the state of Maine, inside the USA. So this is a USA story. Ham radio operators air a grievance. Leave our hobby alone. Well said. Yeah, leave us alone. Controversial soaring edifices along the down east coast seem to be all the rage. Most notably proposed are the Flagpole of Freedom Park in Columbia Falls, which has garnered national attention and prompted a temporary building moratorium. Flagpole of Freedom Park, and click on this link here. Okay. Small town faces huge decision. Take on oversight of proposed $1 billion park or not. What's wrong with that? I don't know. Doesn't pertain to today's story. Neighboring Jonesboro shouldn't be overshadowed, although much less imposing than the proposed 1,461-foot flagpole. Looks like the Washington Monument. I don't see what the problem is. A ham radio antenna array with the highest antenna stretched 200 feet was constructed last year atop the Jonesboro picturesque Blueberry Barrens off Route 1. And you can see a picture of that right there. See, to me, that looks good. You got a bunch of dead trees, and then you got antennas in the background. I don't see the problem. The jarring backdrop along the Chandler River rankled some residents until an ordinance was enacted, but amateur radio buffs are still getting static even as they fend off what they see as new interference with their hobby from Augusta. Yeah, obviously, okay. So this guy owns this land, and he put antennas up, and people around it are complaining. Here's a quote from somebody. You know, when you wake up in the morning, you wouldn't want to look at them all day. Says who? I disagree with that. Says somebody from Jonesboro, town clerk and chair of the planning board of the 7 ham radio antennas, and is talking about the 7 ham radio antennas in her town. So we decided we better put an ordinance in place, basically to keep them from other people's properties, so they don't fall on anybody. No, that's not what you're talking about. That's not what you said. What you said was they're not pleasant to look at, so you want to put an ordinance in place that keeps people from putting whatever they want to on their own land, but you're disguising it as so they don't fall on anybody. There are already restrictions in place, and good ones at that, about tower construction. If you have a tower over like 40 feet, you have to have a certain amount of concrete, a certain amount of guidelines. Assuming that those towers were constructed correctly, those aren't going to fall on your head any more than the radio tower down the street is. There's radio towers all over town for TV antennas, radio stations, police and fire department repeaters. So, assuming that these were constructed correctly, you're not worried about them falling on somebody. You're worried about them, as you just said. When you wake up in the morning, you wouldn't want to look at them every day. Who? Who wouldn't want to look at them every day? You? Well, good. Go buy the land and don't put towers on it. How's that? But if someone else buys land and puts towers on them, maybe you should just, maybe you should just shut the hell up. Put it bluntly. Other than restricting antennas' height, distances from property lines, and requiring a permit, Shopee, somebody who's, this person, said that ham radio officials told the board that there is little else they or any municipality can do to control the proliferation of towers. True. The Jonesboro array, as well as others along the coast, were built and owned by Massachusetts ham radio aficionado Krasimir Petkoff, or K1LZ, Kilo 1 Lima Zulu, as his call sign in the ham universe. Krasimir Petkoff. So a Russian guy comes over here and puts up antennas. Hey, grats to you, dude. Keep going. Do it. Petkov, a high-end manufacturer of amateur radio and commercial communication equipment. Okay, so he's a manufacturer of amateur radio and commercial equipment, did not respond to this publication's request for an interview. If he's a manufacturer of commercial equipment, he knows what the heck he's doing with tower construction. So there's not any danger of those towers falling on houses any more than there is from like a regular old radio tower falling. Now, that does happen. It is a thing. There's been some tornadoes that have knocked down 2,000-foot radio towers, TV antenna towers, and commercial towers. Yeah, that can happen. Sure, it can. Okay, but let's be real here. That's not what you're worried about. You're worried about Mrs. Shopey, however you say her name. She's worried about, she just doesn't like the aesthetics look of it. Well, too bad for you. You know, go buy your own land and don't put stuff on it that you don't want to see. Other hams, as they call themselves, defended Petkov and his antennas in Jonesboro and were eager to fend against any new threats to the hobby that's existed for more than a century. Yes, very true. I have a great view of antennas from my living room window, and it doesn't bother me a bit, said Brian Carlton, a retired game warden and licensed ham in the U.S. and Canada. Higher is always better. Height is might, buddy. Very, very true. Some, including Carlton, who is KC1FXF, have estimated the cost of Petkov's array to be well over $1 million. Carlton, one of Maine's over 4,500 hams in Maine, he has a much less ostentatious setup, a spruce tree stripped bare with a wire antenna attached to his window office. But even he has talked to faraway contacts like Santa Claus in Finland on his modest used rig. Yep, you don't need that big array to do regular ham radio. So another ham in the area says, we don't want restrictions on us. Former Navy communications expert and veteran ham radio operator instructor, this guy, Mr. Dugan, however you say his name. My only worry is that other towns in Washington County will now want a copy of that ordinance and start putting restrictions on other ham radio operations. Less restrictions, more freedom, in my opinion. Sitting in the cramped control room of his Millbridge home, surrounded by walls of squawking and chattering receivers, Dugan fielded questions while monitoring transmissions from France. In reality, he said, most hams don't have the money to put up multiple 200-foot towers like Petkov did. Yeah, I mean, that's the reality of it. You know, less restrictions, less complaining, less telling people what they can and can't do on their own property. But realistically, you're not going to have most people putting up $1 million structures like that. For the average or even Uber ham radio operators, Dugan said investments run from $21 upwards of $10,000, depending on the type of radio, number of antennas, and height. After retiring from a 20-year naval stint as an electronics technician chief, Dugan got his ham license. Ironically, his first rig was a Radio Shack receiver and an antenna made of coat hangers. This guy's a real ham right there. This video is sponsored by LDG Electronics. A special thanks to LDG. If you're coming to Dayton Hamvention, definitely stop by the Gigaparts booth and check out the LDG Electronics tables. They will be having a 20% off sale of most of their items. Check the link in the description below for more details and information about LDG Electronics. Some of the greatest antenna tuners made, and if you're using a wire antenna made out of coat hangers, you're going to want a pretty good tuner for it. So check out the links in the description below, and thank you, LDG, for supporting this channel. Petkov, on the other hand, is what hams call a contester, competing worldwide for awards and expensive prizes by erecting multiple arrays to see who can bounce a signal off the farthest, or compete by scouring forests in urban areas and hunting for transmitters. So, like fox hunt type stuff. So, yeah, DX Worldwide Map right there. So, it goes on to talk about some other stuff, and talk about how they want to put up restrictions, but they don't think they're going to be able to, but they're not sure. And then they start talking about 5G. They start talking about a bill coming, like some kind of environmental thing where they come down about 5G effects on the environment. And this quoted paragraph here says, the way the bill is worded, it talks about 5G, but it also opens up to all modulated radio frequency radiation at non-thermal levels. That means essentially everything. Then let's just shut down VLF in Cutler that can emit over 1 million watts of power. So they're talking about 5G restrictions coming in and potentially harming ham radio operators because the bill or the proposal to limit 5G is worded very broadly to do that. But I don't know about you, but I wouldn't mind seeing that out my back tower, my back window. I know that out in West Texas, a lot of people complain about the windmills. I'd see signs that drive out in West Texas all the time about no windmills. Don't put windmills out here. They're aesthetically ugly. You know, they're non-aesthetically pleasing is what they say instead of ugly. They just don't want windmills in the area. And I guess I can see that to a certain extent. But guys, guess what? If it's my land, I should be able to put up what I want to. If it's your land, you should be able to put up what you want to. How much property taxes is this guy paying in Washington County or the state or the city of Maine or wherever this is? How much property taxes is this guy paying to have that land there? And then you're going to go out and tell him what he can and can't do with his own property? No, No. So, Mr. Petkov, congrats to you, sir. Nice looking antenna setup. Wish I had one myself. And good luck to you on your fight against the restrictions in the state of Maine.